Could you hold your hand up? Can you hear me? If there's a seat next to you, hold your hand up if there's a seat next to you. Okay, those of you in the back who need a seat, there's seats in here where people have their hands up. If you could make your way to the seats, we'd like to get started. We're a little bit past 2 o'clock already, so come on in and get your seat, and we'll get started right away.
Welcome to Help Your Children and Neighbors Navigate Power Outages Safely. Thank you for coming. You will be hearing from, I don't know who PG&E's representative is. Oh, I'm just going to say Houston. Purdue? Senior specialist. Senior public school. I'm going to introduce. Okay. You ready? Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Welcome to Helping Trilogy Neighbors Navigate Power Outages Safely. Thank you for coming today. You will be hearing from PG&E, Miss Pamela Purdue, Jeff Armstrong, Rio Vista's Fire Chief, Barry Frazier, our own Trilogy Emergency Action Committee, Michael Gardner, representative of Solano County Office of Emergency Services Auxiliary Communication, and Trilogy resident with information from the Red Cross. A couple of housekeeping items. Please, make sure your cell phones are off or on silent. The event is being taped and will be available on mytrv.org in a few days. If you have any questions during the QA periods, please raise your hand. In an attempt to answer as many questions as possible in the time allotted, please keep your questions on point. A little about Kindness is Contagious and this event. Kindness is Contagious is a new club with a big goal: to help our neighbors keep the spirit of Trilogy, a place to live safely while we enjoy work and play. A couple of Kindness is Contagious members brought PG&E's safety shutoff notice to a meeting. They were concerned. Shutoffs may last up to 48 hours after the emergency has passed, possibly during very hot weather. Kindness is Contagious team put their heads together to bring you this information. We identified concerns you may face, like opening your garage door manually or shutting off your natural gas to your home. Prior to Kindness is Contagious, I had a belief that this community's greatest assets were its members. These members are your neighbors and possess the foundation of what you need from someone you can both socialize with and trust. We are never sure what will happen next, whether in world affairs or events happening in our own neighborhoods. We cannot be certain where or when our next issue may show up. The only thing we can be sure of is that we will face difficulties at some point. It is incumbent on us to take the initiative, be proactive, and do all we can do to promote our safety. As a member of this community, I believe our responsibility is to find ways to think out of the box to assure our safety remains a priority. I liken our situation to that of being in a foxhole with a fellow soldier under attack. When under attack, the two soldiers will position themselves to best fight off danger. They realize the odds and conclude they double their chances of survival when both fight together. Consider your neighbor as that soldier. They are the closest to you in proximity, someone you can depend on, and who has your back. I ask you, release your insecurities, set aside your hesitations, and reach out to your neighbors. Make them your friends by building a bridge of trust between you. Develop a relationship with them that would allow you to have someone to depend on in your greatest time of need. I leave you with this thought to take home. A first step to being prepared for any emergency is knowing your neighbors. Now, it's time to introduce our speakers. There will be time for questions after each presentation. We ask you to hold your questions until that time. Again, please keep your questions as brief as possible and to the point, so that as many questions as possible can be answered. Now, Elaine Earle, Trilogy resident and member of Kindness is Contagious. She has been coordinating the PG&E with PG&E to bring forth the speaker. Thank you.
I made a request to introduce the PG&E speaker for two reasons. The first one is that I wanted to thank my neighbor, Al Nunez, who just recently retired from PG&E and who was instrumental in bringing in Pam, the speaker. Al is here now, and I wanted to acknowledge him. Thank you for being such a great neighbor. And then I have been coordinating with Pam, and I just want to tell everyone that who we have today is not just somebody who's in the PR department. She is actually the senior public specialist for 11 counties in Northern California, including Solano County, and she is an emergency responder. So her being able to be here today means that she doesn't have any current emergencies. And she knows exactly what has to happen. So with that, I'd like to introduce Pamela Perdue, and she will present her talk on wildfire safety. Thank you.
If you want to go to the next slide. Thank you very much for allowing this opportunity. Basically, what we want to talk about this afternoon is our community wildfire safety program, of which one component of that is the public safety power shutoff. Can't emphasize enough that safety is our priority in the past, today, and in the future for every single one of our customers. As I open this, I do want to make one mention. A public safety power shutoff impacts our overhead and underground electrical infrastructure. It's impactful to our electrical infrastructure. During a public safety power shutoff, we absolutely do not advocate that you shut off your gas services. Unless there is something completely unrelated, please do not shut off your gas services. Our gas system is independent of our electric system. It has redundancies built into it, and it also has backup generation on the system. So again, during a public safety power shutoff, please do not turn off your gas. If you turn off your gas, it requires a PG&E gas service representative to come out and turn it back on. So unless it's an unrelated incident, please don't shut off your gas. These are the three pillars that we focus on for our community wildfire safety program. Our real-time monitoring and intelligence, and our new and enhanced safety message, and our system hardening and resiliency. What our new monitoring systems are, we opened up what's called the Wildfire Safety Operations Center. It's located in San Francisco. It is comprised of internal and external folks that are subject matter experts both on our system and on incidents and emergencies. They literally are monitoring everything that we have: distribution, transmission, substation, hydroelectric, power gen, and our gas transmission system, 365, 24/7. Through our weather stations, through our cameras, through our tactical folks on the ground, and through various other avenues. So we literally now have the capability of monitoring our system remotely and also being able to take action on that equipment remotely. Our new and enhanced safety measures, where we can, we had a lot of damage over the wintertime, as you can appreciate with the winter that we had. We were replacing our equipment with composite materials versus wood materials. We're putting in fiberglass and tubular steel poles where we can and where it makes sense to replace the wood poles. We're using stronger wire, coated wire. We've done a lot of benchmarking with Australia, who has infrastructure similar to ours. They also have climate and wildfire seasons very similar to what we have in California. So we've actually brought their technology, and we're now instituting that here. It's not going to happen overnight. PG&E covers 70,000 square miles. We are rebuilding the system as we can, but it's going to take a little bit of time. We are focusing in our most extreme and high-risk areas to be able to do this. And when we're out doing routine maintenance, when we need to replace equipment, it's being done with new and upgraded equipment. Our new and enhanced safety measures I talked about, again, it's the new equipment. One of the things that we're looking at is developing what's called resilience zones. As you can appreciate, PG&E's been around for 106 years. And again, we cover 70,000 square miles, and we serve 16 million customers within California. What we're looking at the system from an engineering standpoint is how we can create what's referred to as microgrids. So just as a hypothetical example, if we have a distribution line that may serve 5,000 customers, how can we cut that into smaller pieces so if there's an impact to that line, it's only going to impact maybe 1,000 or a few hundred instead of all 5,000. This is a giant engineering undertaking of which the company is working on, but again, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We're looking at our extreme areas of risk in wildfire areas that are very high threat to start rebuilding and adding more equipment to the system so that we can perform and execute these upgrade measures. So if we can go to the next. So this is a little bit about our real-time monitoring. Right now we have over 400 weather stations installed. There are 4 across Solano County. We have 1 camera installed, and we're getting ready to do another. This gives not only PG&E but our fire agency partners the opportunity to take a look at what's going on within our system. This data is publicly available to all of our public safety agencies, so they can take a look at this data. It's 24/7, and they can log in, get weather readings, and get visuals on the cameras. Go to the next one. So the public safety power shutoff. Very new to PG&E. We're not the only utility company that has this program in place. Southern California Edison has had this program since 2007. This is not something that's taken very lightly. It's not one single factor that's going to trigger a public safety power shutoff. There are multiple factors that have to be taking place simultaneously. It's not just a red flag warning day. It's a red flag warning day with low relative humidity, meaning the air is very hot and very dry, and conducive to, if there is an ignition, the possibility of a fire growing to becoming a large fire is probable. Winds in excess of 25 miles an hour and gusts above 45 miles an hour. Now here in Solano County, a 25 mile an hour wind is an everyday occurrence. But when you start adding if it's not windy, we're wondering why. If you start adding dry fuel conditions with red flag warnings, high temperatures, low relative humidity, and poor recoveries overnight, and what that means is if we're not getting our delta winds and the temperatures at night are not dropping any below the 80s or the 70s, it's staying very hot and dry. So by the time you get to the next day, the conditions are very, very hot and very, very dry. So it's all of these in a combination with each other. Go to the next one. And when we're seeing these, we will actually deploy PG&E employees out with a handheld instrument called a Kestrel to actually go out and stand in areas that are deemed critical to take a barometer reading of the weather of what it looks like, in addition to all the monitoring that's taking place remotely. Our service territory is broken up in Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 areas. As you can see, the red areas of this map are the extreme, and the yellow areas are the elevated. Any PG&E resident needs to be prepared regardless if you live downtown in an urban area with underground infrastructure or if you live in a remote rural area with overhead infrastructure. Every PG&E employee and customer needs to be prepared, residential and commercial customers, because of the way the system is designed and where the power potentially could be de-energized and the system is all connected together. That's why every customer needs to be prepared. We're focusing predominantly in our Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas with our education, the rebuilding of our system, and the upgrading of our system. Differences between 2018 and 2019. This year, all of our transmission lines have the potentiality of being included in a public safety power shutdown, as well as all of our distribution system that also is impactful for our substations. We'll go to the next one. This is a great visual of why every single customer needs to be prepared because of the way the system is engineered. We have a lot of transmission and distribution infrastructure in these extreme areas, backcountry remote areas, steep, rugged country that have to come down into what we call WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface Area, which is your mix of urban and rural areas down into populated areas. So if you think of our transmission lines as an artery and our distribution lines as the veins, if you start impacting an artery, it's going to start impacting your veins and impacting the capillaries. I use that analogy because it's a good visual of a downstream effect, that if we have to de-energize a transmission line, then it's certainly going to affect our distribution circuit. So if we have to de-energize Big Brother, Little Brother is going to be impacted, meaning it could be impacted all the way into an urban area. That's why we can't emphasize enough that every single one of our customers needs to be prepared. We can go to the next one. The way that we're going to notify people that this is going to take place, from a state level, a state executive level, PG&E executive staff will notify CAL FIRE, Cal OES, and the CPUC, and the California State Warning System. That will trickle down to the regions will be notified, each individual operational area and county will be notified. Part of my job as a public safety specialist and agency rep is to make sure that the fire chief is notified, the police chief is notified, county OES is notified, and then stay in constant contact with them. This is why it is so critical that your PG&E customer information be updated on the website. We can't get a hold of you if you don't have current information. I've been a PG&E customer for a very, very, very long time. When I went in to check my account, I realized there was a landline associated to my account that was 17 years old. The bill comes, we pay the bill, it goes off, life is good. Never thought to upgrade my information because I no longer have a landline. I have mobile devices, I have a satellite phone. I don't have a landline, I live in a rural area. But my PG&E account had bad information. The notifications will be going out 48 hours prior to a shutdown. This is if the weather is cooperating. We did execute a public safety power shutdown in June. We had 36 hours notice. Not even the National Weather Service had anticipated we were going to see such extreme conditions that was going to impact our system. The goal is to notify everybody 48 hours out, from the state to the region, to the OAs, to the counties, to every single local city that's also going to be impacted. 48 hours prior to, another notification will go out 24 hours prior to, another notification will go out just before the power being turned off. Texts, email, and phone calls. So if you have mobile devices, make sure that your information is current so that we can reach you. Once the notifications will also go out while the power is out, and then just before the power is restored. We can go to the next one. We have an extra layer of information that we're going to be providing to those individuals proactively, voluntarily registered in what we call our medical baseline program. We are the utility company. This is a voluntarily opt-in program for those individuals that may have some type of condition that requires them to use medical equipment at home, whether it be a CPAP machine, an oxygen concentrator, or other medical devices where they do require power. In addition to the emails, the phone calls, and the texts, additional information or additional notices will go out to those customers. We will, if we have not heard back from them, from the phone or the text, and the system that we use is called Send Word Now, and it will keep calling your mobile device until you hit 1 and make that annoying text message go away. But when you hit reply, that's an indication to our system that that message has been acknowledged by that customer. If we don't receive that acknowledgement, we will dispatch a PG&E employee to actually go knock on the door and make sure that that customer has received the messages that a public safety power shutoff is imminent, and they soon will have, they will be without power within their residence. Very, very important that everybody have your contact information current. If we do not reach that customer, even after we've knocked on the door, we will leave a door hanger on the number, and that information is also going to be tracked by us so that we can continue to try to do outreach to that customer. Turning off the power is not the hard part. That's the easy part. Our engineers can de-energize any of our lines within minutes. They walk over to the big yellow handle, and they pull the handle, power's out. Where it becomes the time for us to restore our system is once we've gotten an all clear from the National Weather Service and our meteorologists, and people don't realize we have 10 full-time meteorologists that work for PG&E, 2 of which have specialized background in fire behavior. We just recently hired an additional 2 who came to us from the National Weather Service. These are subject matter experts on meteorology as it impacts utility infrastructure. So working with the National Weather Service, once we've gotten that all clear, that the extreme critical incident has passed, we're going to start our restoration process. As we begin that, every single line that we have will be inspected, both boots on the ground, binoculars, looking at every piece of equipment from ground to sky, with drones and with helicopters. We will not re-energize any line until it's been inspected and confirmed that there's no damage on that particular circuit, whether it be distribution or transmission. This is where the 48 hours comes in. As you can appreciate, we have to inspect everything from what we call source to end of line, meaning we're going to start our inspections at our substation all the way to the very end of the line, to the very last pole and transformer at the end of that line. This does take some time. It's faster in the urban areas. We will use a lot of manpower. We will pre-stage resources when we get ready to do this. When we had to execute this in June, we brought in crews from Bakersfield and Fresno and San Luis Obispo, those areas in our service territory that were not impacted. So we pre-staged hundreds of employees and 19 helicopters to begin the inspection process. Once we're given that all clear, we're going to start this. We're also going to provide updates to our customers as to when your power is going to be restored. Now we've gotten the question, we can go to the next one. We've gotten a question if, well, what happens when you turn the power back on? Are you going to create power surges? Well, the answer is no. We're going to perform something called step restoration. So as the lines are inspected and deemed to be clear of any damage, those circuits will be re-energized. So the power's not coming back on all at once. It's once circuit A is inspected and deemed to be safe, it'll be re-energized. Then we're going to go to circuit B and then circuit C and so on. So the power won't come back all at once. We're going to focus on our urban areas and our critical and essential customers, which are the dispatch centers, the hospitals, critical facilities, water treatment facilities, fire stations, those types of facilities, to get those back online first. Those who live in a remote rural area, those are the customers that may experience a little bit of a delay, because as you can appreciate, where some of our lines go is in very, very rugged country, and it's most efficient to inspect it via helicopter. We'll go to the next one. Backup generation. Lots and lots of questions about, well, do I need to go get a generator? You have to assess your individual circumstances. Do you have a backup plan? Can you sustain yourself, and are you prepared to potentially be without power for 48 hours? Do you have a communications plan? Do you have water? Do you have food? Do you have medications? Do you have accommodations for your pets? Or have you worked with your neighbors? There's tons of resources available out there to be able to create a kit. Luckily, we've got a great representative from the Red Cross here to answer those questions as well. From our PG&E website, there's a ton of information of how you can prepare. If one of those customers fall within our medical baseline and they're on some type of medical durable equipment, do you have backup battery or an extra battery? Or can you go stay with a friend or family member or neighbor during this period? For those individuals that's not a feasibility and they want to go out and get a generator, we have fact sheets available on our website about generator safety. This is a very serious topic that you need to do a little research in. You can't just run to the big box store, get a generator, take it home, pull up a YouTube video and say, yep, I got my generator installed. The reason being, if the transfer switch and the inverter on that generator is not properly installed, if it hasn't been installed by an electrician, that generator could be feeding power back into our line because our line is de-energized. But if a generator is feeding power into the line and one of our linemen or crew members goes to work on our line thinking it's de-energized, but the generator is putting power through the transformer back into our line, the likelihood of severe injury or killing one of our workers is very high. The opposite is also true. If you don't have the proper installation of an inverter and a transfer switch on your generator and we turn the power back on, power is going to feed back through that transformer, back through the generator, back into whatever it's plugged into, and potentially could cause a structure fire in your residence or wherever it's at. So there's tons of information on our website in regard to generator safety. So working with our customers to prepare. Updating your information on our website is absolutely critical. When we have those customers that are what we refer to as master meter customers, Trilogy may be a little different, but those customers who live in mobile home parks and some other communities where the PG&E bill goes to the owner of that facility and the individual residents may not, we are working on a plan to be able to disseminate that information down to every single customer so that your information is current and you can go to our website and log on to be able to receive the notifications. We're doing public service announcements. We're holding a series of open houses. We're doing presentations like this for every fire agency, police department, county OES, and critical customer within our service territory. We're reaching out to our schools and our hospitals, social service agencies, public health agencies to get this word out absolutely as much as possible. But it really comes down to, we live in California. Regardless of what the nature of the power outage is, fire, flood, earthquake, zombie apocalypse, doesn't matter. We need to be prepared regardless of what causes the outage. We can't emphasize that enough. Even though Loma Prieta did not impact Solano County that bad, this is the 30th anniversary of Loma Prieta. July 4th, Ridgecrest, California, 6.4 followed by a 7.1, should have been a little wake-up call. We just had a 3.4 earthquake in San Ramon. Really? August 2014, we had a very destructive earthquake in Napa. So even though Solano County isn't as prone to earthquakes, my point to that is we still need to be prepared. So through talks like this, having information available, going to our website, there's another website out there that was driven by Cal OES. It's called prepareforpowerdown.com. I can leave that information with Elaine and she can disseminate it out to you. That website was driven by Cal OES and it was put together with all the investor utilities, Pacific Gas and Electric, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Department of Gas and Electric, so that every single Californian has the exact same message and we're using the same verbiage. Tons of information on our website and the prepareforpowerdown.com, also in multiple languages. What to do with friends and family and pets and neighbors, whether you're a commercial customer or a residential or a business customer. Definitely recommend that you go to those websites and take a look. You can go to the next one. So some additional things that we're working on. We are doing everything we can to get the message out for our customers to be prepared. Again, a public safety power shutoff is going to impact our electrical system, not the gas system. Unless it is something completely unrelated, please do not shut off your gas. But now is the time to prepare to be ready in the event that we have to execute this within this particular area of the county that you potentially could be without power for 48 hours. One of the things about Solano County, even though we have a lot of major transmission systems that run through Solano County, we have our Vaca-Dixon substation, and you can see these giant steel lattice towers that run along Highway 12 and throughout the county. We have multiple lines of transmission running through the county. The likelihood of every one of those lines being de-energized at the same time is unlikely. Every single day we de-energize parts of our transmission lines running through this county. We call it's called a clearance, meaning we will de-energize that line proactively if we're doing maintenance on the line, if we're working on the line. So every single day, there is probably a line de-energized in the county has zero customer impact. We can route the power onto different lines. There could be impact if those lines are running through those extreme threat areas, the tier 3 areas. But again, the likelihood of all of our transmission system being de-energized at the same time is unlikely. We still need every single customer to be prepared in the event that the lines we do energize impacts exactly where you live. You can go to the next one. Awful lot of information in a very short period of time. This is the phone number if you have additional questions. Absolutely would recommend that you take a snapshot of this so that you have this email address and this phone number. We have an entire team of people that staff this to answer questions and things of that nature. But pg&e.com/safety and prepareforpowerdown.com are two critical links of information that will help you prepare to not only yourself, but your family members, your neighbors, those residents that may not live in Trilogy, that live outside of Trilogy, what you need to do both here and externally. So again, an awful lot of information in a short period of time, but the more time that we all take to prepare ourselves, then the less impactful that this could be. So thank you very much for your time, and we do have a couple of minutes for questions. Yes, sir.
Where are we on that tier 2, tier 3?
Most of Solano County around the Rio Vista area is tier 1, tier 2, but when you start getting up into the hills, Mount Vaca, that's tier 3 areas. But around here, it's predominantly tier 1 and tier 2. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you stand up? Sorry.
There's a microphone coming.
Okay. Very good question, thank you. What about the homes with solar power? If the solar power, if the panels are installed properly, they are connected into the system. So when the power is shut off, they will also be shut off. Unless they have a separate battery storage system to be able to store what is being generated, those solar panels will be turned off. When the power comes back on, if they're properly installed with a commercial, a licensed electrician, then everything should be fine. Same thing with electric vehicle chargers. Yes, sir.
With all the Travis Air Force Base planes flying around, I don't think I need it. How much chance, if they had a fatality accident, they knocked off several of those big, tall steel power poles down to get the power back on in operation?
So, sir, that is somewhat unrelated to a public safety power shutoff. That's a very interesting yet odd scenario. I grew up at Travis Air Force Base, so if a C-5 came into the tarmac and wiped out several of those towers, you potentially could experience an extended power outage, but that is a completely different scenario than a proactive power shutoff. I can tell you that, yes, there would be a power shutoff, but in an instant like that, other measures would be taken to restore the power. One more.
On the 48-hour physical inspection before you re-energize, I'm curious as to why you're not able to detect breaks or problems in the system from a control center.
And actually, thank you for that question. The 48 hours is the long side. I'll give you an example. In the weekend of June 7th, when we executed a public safety power shutoff, we did de-energize some transmission lines in Butte County. We were able to fly those lines and restore those lines within an hour and a half, restoring much of the power to Orville. We can look at our system from a control center through something called SCADA. It's system control and data acquisition. So we can view the system, but the whole point of a public safety power shutoff is to prevent a catastrophic wildfire, is to prevent something serious happening if there is an ignition. And the reason that we will not automatically turn the power back on through our line reclosers and through SCADA is we had 6 examples in June where, because of 70-mile-an-hour gusts, we did have vegetation limbs contact our power lines and detach those lines from the pole, and they hit the ground. That information was recorded in our electric incident report and provided to the CPUC. In a couple of those instances, if those lines had been energized, if we had turned them back on remotely, and that caused a spark in the dry grass, then the potentiality of a fire start was very high. So until everything is visually inspected, we will not re-energize the lines. The closer that we are into an urban area, the faster that inspection is going to go. It's all based on safety. We'll take one more question, and then they're going to cut me off.
What happens is if it's longer, does it ever happen to be longer than 48 hours?
In November of 2018, when we executed this, we had some customers that live in very remote rural areas. Yes, they experienced a power interruption for 3.5 days. Mind you, they live in a very rural area. Our urban areas were restored much faster because the damage is less. Your winds down here are probably not going to see 75-mile-an-hour gusts that you're going to see up on the ridges of Mount Vaca, Mount Bullion, where we have in Santa Clara County, and some of the other ridges. And that also was in a rural, much more rural county in El Dorado County. The likelihood of that here in Rio Vista, in Solano County, is not likely. We cannot emphasize enough, safety is paramount and a priority for everyone, and we just want everyone to be prepared regardless of what the nature of your outage is. So thank you very much for inviting us and providing you a little additional information on what the Public Safety Power Shutoff program is about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. That was great. Our next speaker is the Rio Vista Fire Department Chief, Jeff Armstrong. And he's been chief for 2.5 years in Rio Vista. Before that, for 5 years, he was the fire chief in Southern California. And for 23 years, he was a fireman in Placer County. And he is going to speak on weed abatement programs and on an update for the Rio Vista Fire Department plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a full room. Should probably get a hold of the fire marshal. Oh. I'm going to make a change on her here really quickly. I did not provide a PowerPoint, nor can I follow that up, and I can't do that justice. I've sat through a number of PG&E presentations, and I will tell you that was probably an 11 on a 10 scale, so very good job with that. I'm going to have her bring up a website really quick since I found out she has web access, and I'm going to show you one of the programs that we're rolling out. And this kind of ties into, man, I'm not a podium guy. I'm just not a podium guy. Okay, there we go. So this website kind of wraps up everything that we're talking about here today. Emergency preparedness, what are your unique needs, and then what if you need help within that 48 hours? And this program that we're rolling out is called Community Connect. And what this does is it allows you to log in, create a profile, and provide information directly to your fire department, the Rio Vista Fire Department, on what your unique needs are. Now, this can be for public safety power shutoffs, or this could be for routine help that you might need, non-emergent, or this could be for 911 calls. A lot of folks either live alone or they are alone most of the day while their spouse is working. So this gives you an opportunity to provide contact information for family members, any unique needs you might have in the house, mobility issues. Do you have pets? We have dangerous dogs, we have unfriendly dogs, and then we have really friendly dogs. We'd probably like to know about the ones that tend to be a little less friendly. Also, if you have a pet alligator, we probably need to know about that as well. So there's things like that. If you have some additional information you want to put in there that's going to help with firefighter safety if they respond to your house, we ask that you do that as well. You'll get prompted to answer questions like, where is your gas shut off? And things like that. So think about that. Or do you store anything in the garage that we should know about? There's a lot of folks that have hobbies, and if they store paints and things like that in their garage, you'd probably like to know a little bit about that. This information is only shared with us. It's only inside the fire department. The website does talk a little bit about website security and what happens to the information that you share. Here's the neat part. We respond to your incident, or we respond to your house for an incident while we're en route on the iPad in either the command vehicles or in the fire engine. This information pops up. And it will prioritize it, and it will let us know there's information we put in here, and they can look right at their iPad while they're responding code 3 to your house and getting this information. So here's the website. There are postcards that have gone around the back, and they look like this, and you'll see them in the back table. There's a QR code on here. Now, I had to learn this myself a couple days ago. If you have an iPhone, you can just turn on your camera and point your camera at that. You don't need a QR reader, and it will open up the web browser for you. So I learned a little something this week as well. So let me back up a little bit. Wanted to bring your attention to this website because it is kind of fitting to what we're talking about. Let me back up a little bit and talk to you about the fire department. So there are a lot of familiar faces in here, but there are a lot of folks that I haven't had the chance to meet and talk to. So real briefly, the Rio Vista Fire Department is a full-time staffed, 24/7 paid professional department that provides ALS services. Okay, what's ALS? We have a paramedic on our fire engines. We have at least one paramedic on every day. Most shifts we have more than one paramedic. We also have a small reserve and volunteer program, and we also have a training position called intern firefighter. So anytime during the week and during the weekends, you could have anywhere from 3 to 5 firefighters on a day responding to any incident throughout the city. The only other staff 24/7 department around here is a volunteer department across the river in Rio Vista. Other than that, you would have to go to Contra Costa, up to Vacaville or Fairfield to get a full-time paid professional department. So you guys are protected by a department that I am proud to lead, has a history of kind of leading in this area. And one of the things we pride ourselves in is our non-emergent services that we provide. We respond out routinely to help folks with battery changes and their smoke detectors. We respond out to help folks back into bed, out of the car after a doctor's appointment. A very unique service model that we provide to Rio Vista. When I got here, it was much different than the organization I came from, where we didn't have time to really stop to do much between fires. But here we don't have that many fires, thankfully, knock on wood. And we have an opportunity to come out and serve this community in a very unique way. So a couple topics I have for you. One of the ones that I get asked about all the time is weed abatement. Yes, we do have a weed abatement program. I need to be careful when I say a weed abatement program. I don't have firefighters with weed eaters that will come out and cut your weeds. Although the firefighters union would probably love to increase staffing, I don't know that they would want to go out and do that. But we do have weed abatement standards, and we do have a program that goes out and does proactive patrol. I have a couple civilian inspectors in the department that come in a couple days a week, and they do help with that. I just released a updated weed abatement standard. This is also on the back table. This is also on our city website, and this has also been shared on all our social media platforms for those folks that are on social media. And basically, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it goes through and it describes what the municipal code requires for weed abatement, and also describes the process for requesting an inspection. We used to call it a weed abatement complaint, but since we're being positive today, we're going to call it a request for patrol or request for inspection. So we've changed that up a little bit. So please take a look at that. If you have any questions specific to weed abatement, I'd be happy to answer them when we get to the end. But again, it's a 2-page document. I'm not going to bore you with the details. I apologize, I forget her first name, but the young lady from PG&E did a really good job of talking about emergency preparedness. In fact, she covered my entire sheet. So I yield the floor for 5 minutes, right, at the end. Anyway, one of the things that I do want to touch on is that the city does have some recommendations that we've put out. It also directs your attention to the state OES website, where they also give you some advice for preparing. The state does say prepare for 72 hours to be self-sufficient in your home for 72 hours. And no, Barry's going to talk on this, and I'm not going to steal his thunder. But I do want to talk a little bit about how the city works with the county. The city has what's called an Emergency Operations Plan, EOP. When I got here, I started talking about it, and I kind of made the mistake by saying, well, we need to update it. So then everybody goes, oh my goodness, what's wrong with it? Nothing's wrong with it. So every year we should pull these books off the shelf, knock the dust off of them, flip through them, and read them, and make sure that they're appropriate and would be effective. Every 5 years, we should probably pull them off the shelf and make some revisions because something has changed in 5 years. And so what we need to do is our plan is probably about 12 years old. We need to take it down and we need to update it. There have been a lot of changes at the state level and there have been a lot of changes at the county level. And so we need to make sure that our plan is applicable for the city because in reality, we are a small city. If we had something major occur, our resources are going to get taxed really quickly. We can have the greatest plan in the world, but if we can't enact that plan because it's too lofty or it requires resources that we don't have, it's just going to be that, a really well-written plan that somebody patted themselves on the back for writing. So we need to make sure that our plan is, what's the acronym for SMART? Remember, I'm going to put you on the spot. I put you on the spot, I put myself on the spot. Anyway, every plan is supposed to be SMART, and it's talking about achievable, measurable, and it has a time. Simple, achievable, measurable, and has a time, I think. Timely. So we need to really look at our plan. What can we do locally? What can we handle locally? And then what is the benchmark and the trigger point for pushing that up to the county? And at what point should the county emergency operations center stand up and then support Rio Vista? And at what point does the county need to get a hold of the state and have the state emergency operations center work? So that's what we're doing right now. I know that the rumor's been out there that we don't have a plan. We actually do. The state has a very good plan, probably one of the best in the nation. And as you can see from the fire side of things, we have a very good response for fire and life safety. And then the county has a good plan, which they rewrote, and I'm going to put myself on the spot again. I want to say it was released in January of 2018. And so we're right now looking at what the county plan says, because we don't want to, number one, contradict it, and number two, we don't want to duplicate efforts. So we're working on that right now. So let me go back to the website here and jump around a little bit. And if you could scroll that page down a little bit, you're going to see a really goofy guy's picture on this page. I don't know who he is. There's a little message, just basically what this is about. I know PGD is asking you to go on and update their information. We're asking you to do the same, especially if you're in a high-risk population or if you think you're going to need help during these 48 hours or at any time responding out to your home. And then if you go to the bottom of that page a little bit further, it'll give you some tips on how to put it on your mobile device. I would recommend desktop. I use my phone a lot, but this is much easier on a desktop if you have the ability to do that. And then you, all the way at the bottom of the page, they talk a little bit about web security. And if there's anybody in here who's an IT guru, you'd probably understand some of that. And I'll let you guys peruse through that. Please take an opportunity to pick up one of the postcards on the way out. I thought there was going to be 30 or 40 people here, so I grabbed about 35 postcards. So I apologize. But come by the fire station anytime you're downtown. We'd be more than happy to give them to you. And our hotshot volunteers have also, a couple of them have also volunteered to step up and help you guys create a profile if for whatever reason you're having an issue doing that. We have a few folks that have tackled this website, done it themselves, and are self-proclaimed pros at it. So with that, I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, and I will take any questions unless I'm out of time.
Many of us don't have a landline where you're calling from a cell phone, and I've heard you shouldn't dial 911 from a cell phone.
So I'm not going to tell you not to dial 911 because that goes against everything that I've ever been taught and everything that I've ever taught. But in Rio Vista, we do have an issue with sometimes our cell phones will go to a tower over in Sacramento County or sometimes even hit a tower down in Contra Costa County. 374-2300 is a direct line into the dispatch. If you feel that this may be an issue or you've ever experienced that in the future, that is a number that will go directly to. They will answer it just like they would answer 911, and they will ask you, do you have an emergency? So that way your call will be placed at the top of the list. If you have a problem with that, I'm still going to tell you dial 911 because it's going to be hard to say, don't dial 911, call this number. 374-2300 is an alternative if you feel that. Correct, that's 707, yes. And we had it created just for Rio Vista because it's a 374 prefix. Yes.
Hey, Chief, thanks for coming and answering questions. Something that PG&E didn't address, and I don't know if the Red Cross or any of the other participants are going to talk about it, but like centers for people to go during these power outages, where will there be power? Are there community centers in Rio Vista or here in Trilogy that people can go to?
So there are centers, and those are identified in our emergency operations plan, and I can list a few of them, but I have a hard time. I mean, I'll tell you what's out there and what's available. But understand that things change, and then the power publics, depending on why we need a shelter. Did something happen in Rio Vista, or is it a power shutoff issue? Those centers may be affected by that, so the plan, we may have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. I can tell you this was enacted recently when they had a shutoff in Fairfield and parts of Suisun City, and Travis Air Force Base was ramping up and preparing for sheltering. The big concern we have this time of year is air conditioning. I have high school auditoriums, I have the senior youth center downtown, we have the fire station as a smaller facility for like a cooling center that we open up sometimes. But again, remember, some of those might be affected by these power shutoffs. One thing that I will tell you, and I don't know if any of you know, but the city is going through a process of upgrading all the city facilities to solar right now. And we're expecting PG&E probably doesn't want to hear that. We're expecting a significant savings. One of the benefits we're getting with that is we've already always had a generator at the fire station, and we have storage in the city for diesel, so we can continue to be self-sufficient for a while. But if we run out of that supply, fire station now also has a battery backup, which will last us another couple days. Or if our diesel supply is interrupted. So the number one cooling center is the fire station. It's not really a long-term shelter, and then we have a few other facilities in the city identified, but again, there's a little check mark next to them whether or not they have HVAC or whether they have heater air conditioning. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Nobody has a commercial type generator that's powered by natural gas, can run forever and power a building and all that?
Not a city facility, not that's been identified. I know that we have approached, as a city, we have approached Trilogy and tried to get a few of these buildings identified, and there's been some resistance at the HOA level. We wanted to, I know, share the cost. Well, there you go. Boy, I just dropped that grenade in the middle of the room, didn't I? I'll go back and tell the city manager, so I think I solved the problem. But, there's a lot of opportunity. I know there's opportunity through PG&E even to get low-cost generators, partially funded generators, get them hooked up. I know that the offer went out to say, hey, we'll do the work. We'll talk about funding it. What can we do? But understand that would be a solution for all of Rio Vista. And I know sometimes getting through those gates can be tough if you don't have a clicker. So, or a badge. Yes.
Hi, I don't know if this question is actually for you or the city of Rio Vista, but I have been very concerned about evacuation, how that we would proceed with such a thing, given that we have this bridge. When it shuts down, it backs up all the way to Suisun City. So if you have any way of addressing how we would actually get evacuated, should there be grass fires, storming right around here?
So that's actually a great question for me, and even though it's a city question, I'm a city employee, so I will try to take a stab at it. It is a grave concern to us as well. Traffic is being addressed at the city level right now, and I know that there are some meetings coming up with Caltrans to talk about that. One of the things that we're talking about is the use of McCormick and how we would do that. We're talking about potentially when a bridge issue does surface, shutting the highway down at 12 and 113, and then shutting McCormick off and preventing the backups from happening, because that's starting to impede our emergency response. So that's the first step, is how do we keep this clog from happening? Especially that clog happens and at 4:30 in the afternoon and we have to evacuate the city. That would be a larger concern. There are evacuation routes identified. One of the things that we do is we shut the road down in one direction, and we would push people out in both lanes out of the city if we had to get them out. We are limited by our artery roads here, and they are very small, and they are a high risk to us. Going back to it was October 2016, I was interviewing for fire chief here, and I'd come up from Southern California, and I got asked a question about risk, and I don't remember the exact question, but I was being asked about risk and about potential here in Rio Vista, and I talked about the bridge, and I got some really funny looks when I brought up the bridge, and then I had been chief for about 8 months, and the bridge broke. So I went in and reminded my boss that I answered that in the question, or I answered that in the interview. So yes, it is something that we're being looked at. It is addressed in our emergency operations plan. We would coordinate with Caltrans and CHP to close those roads down to keep everybody out of Rio Vista so we could get the residents in both lanes leaving. But it is, I will tell you, I'll be honest with you, it's a weakness. It's a weakness based on the size of our roads. I know there's also talk about finishing McCormick out. I know there's a lot of talk. And the gap between talk and action sometimes is a couple decades, but there is talks about finishing that out as well. So,
good afternoon, Chief. I'm Edward Simpkins, the General Manager for the Association, and wanted to...
Sorry about that grenade.
No, actually, I just had a conversation at lunch with one of our board members relative to that.
Okay.
What I wanted to let you know, the postcard that you may run short on, we actually are doing a reprint in Trilogy Living, which is our monthly newsletter that goes out in August. So everyone will have an opportunity to scan it and to learn and to, of course, use that information for your purposes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that support.
Hello.
Hi.
You mentioned weed abatement, and I'm just concerned about what are your methods of weed abatement? Is it just cutting down the weeds, or are you using certain weed killers that we should be concerned with, or?
So I did. Thanks for holding me accountable there. I did kind of jump over that, but if I have a few extra seconds, I'll cover that real quick. So the process is that we go out either on proactive patrol and we see the issue and we write it up, or we get a. We're not calling it a complaint. We're calling it a request for inspection, and we respond to that. That gets sent to me to my email as the fire chief, fire marshal, and then I either handle it myself or I forward it to an inspector. We go out and we take a look at it, and if it indeed does need to be abated to meet the standards, we would send out a notice. Now, our municipal code says we have to send out a notice, we have to wait 14 days, we have to send out another notice, and then we have the right to go on and abate that if it is a public safety threat. So then, if we reach that point, we would then hire a contractor, and we have a couple of them that we rotate through. We would identify the property after going through the legal notices, and we would go on and we would have them abate that. Now, what does that usually look like? It usually looks like weed eating or mowing, depending on what needs to be done. The municipal code also allows disking, and the dimensions and what's required and property lines and lot size is all contained in that flyer. Did I kind of answer your question? You know, at this point, it doesn't prevent it. I know that that's very controversial right now, the use of it, and I don't know enough about Roundup to have an opinion one way or the other. I never got Roundup when I was a teenager, and my dad had 1.5 acres that I had to weed eat. I had to weed eat it. Blackberries and all. There was no Roundup. Yes, sir.
Hi. The other night, we were on 160. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and there was a trailer in front of us with sparks flying out from underneath. Who do you call? We flashed our lights. We finally got them pulled over, and they picked the chain off their trailer. But who do you call if you're driving along the freeway and...
Depending on where you're at, most likely, you know, if it's going to start a fire or you believe it's going to immediately start a fire, I would call 911 and I'd just let because if you're out on the highway, you're probably going to go to CHP dispatchers, let them know, they'll dispatch the closest unit. The problem with 160 is there's not a lot of patrol between here and Antioch. There's not a lot of law enforcement on that stretch of road, so if you call and say this truck's driving up to Rio Vista and it's sparking right now, you know, whether they stop them or not. I would say the best thing to do if it's somebody that's inadvertently doing is trying to get their attention. I mean, obviously don't pass on a double yellow, but if you could flash your lights and get their attention, obviously nobody's really doing that intentionally. So, but worst, I mean, the best thing would be is to call 911, ask for law enforcement, give them a license plate or a description if you can, and obviously if it started a fire, let them know that, and then we'll come out and we'll handle it as well. Okay, I'm being given the hook. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next two speakers were going to speak separately, but then they got together yesterday. They turn out to be friends, and they're both on the Emergency Action Committee. So they're going to change back and forth between who speaks. So the first speaker is Michael Gartner, and he is with the Red Cross Disaster Action Team lead. He's told me he's the guy that goes out at 2 a.m. and drives the truck to the disaster. And his partner is, I also want to mention he's also the Rio Vista representative for the Solano County Office of Emergency Auxiliary Communication Services. We'll have to ask him what that means. And the second speaker is Barry Frazier. Oh, and let me tell you that Michael is going to speak on Get a Kit, Make a Plan, and Be Informed. And the vice chair of the Emergency Action Committee at Trilogy is Barry Frazier, and he's going to show us how to set up an emergency kit and how to open our garage door during an outage. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Mike Gartner. I live down the road here, hooting a holler, and I am one of the guys that gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning and goes to fires around Solano County, house fires, and also have been deployed often around the country for other disasters, all of which involve getting a plan, getting a kit, making a plan, and being informed. Those are the three things we'd like you to walk away with today. Get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. The reason I say that is I've been all over the country, all over this county, all over this state in responding to disasters, both natural and man-made, okay? And I will tell you that 90% of the time when we get people who are victims of these things, they arrive with one thing and one thing only, their cell phone. And I will tell you that in many of the occasions, the cell phone is fine, but on a lot of occasions, the cell phone just is not going to work. So it's important that we take this seriously, and I hope that at least some of you will actually go ahead and do something about it as opposed to just reading about it. You've seen it now with me and Barry. You've seen it in the other presentations today. Everybody's saying the same thing, so it must mean something. If we could go to the first slide here. You all set? The magic fingers didn't work here, okay? The fact is that disasters happen. They happen often, like power outages. They happen with little or no warning at all. It's not often that you have a disaster warning, and they can happen anywhere, anytime. Odds are within Trilogy, within Rio Vista, these kinds of disasters, the odds are low, but they do happen, and you need to be prepared. Every year, if you go to the next slide, people across the United States are faced with these disasters. We've done a little bit of a survey within the Red Cross in our region, and there are actually 3 hazards that we face within Solano County, all of which are related, by the way, to power outages, okay? Number 1 is home fires. That's our primary response here. We go out and we handle probably several hundred home fires every year where we provide assistance to the victims of those fires. Secondly is wildfires. Again, it may not, for this particular time, be an issue within Rio Vista, but it could be an issue in the future. It certainly is an issue throughout the state, and one that a number of us in the Red Cross have been involved with all the time. Like all of us, we have the Red Cross fire season as well, where we gear up and get ready to go wherever we may be needed. And although less likely, You know, you heard it just there. You know, there was an earthquake down the road a little bit. And I think that some people told me at least that they felt the earth move within the Rio Vista when that occurred. And I assume it was because of the earthquake itself and not other reasons. If we could go to the next slide, please. It's up to all of us to be ready, okay? It's our jobs to be ready. There just aren't enough people out there to respond immediately to whatever our needs may be. The first responders like the fire chief, PG&E, disaster organizations like the Red Cross, the government, it takes a while for us to ramp up to a disaster. It doesn't happen in a matter of minutes or in even a matter of hours. Generally, these groups are staffed and prepared for normal day-to-day operations. Again, how do you anticipate a disaster? How do you get ready and say, well, there's going to be a wildfire tomorrow, or an earthquake tomorrow, or there's going to be a house fire tomorrow? So the resources initially may be limited for a disaster. Okay, the truth is we have to depend on ourselves and our neighbors, on our community. Roads may be impassable. The utilities like PG&E may be unavailable. The hospitals and first responders may be overwhelmed. And don't forget that things like power outages and disasters spill over into many areas, okay? What else can't you get during disaster? One of the things that we recommend that you have on hand. Forget your ATM. If you don't have cash on hand, the ATM is down. The bank is closed. What are you going to do? Gasoline. The pumps are down. So again, this has a cumulative effect spilling into many areas of our lives. And you may be required to help other members of your household and certainly in community. So the bottom line is don't count on receiving help right away, which is why you hear over and over again this 72-hour thing, the 3 days. Be ready to be on your own, if you will, for 3 days. That's the max, okay? Generally, the responders will get to you before that, but be prepared. It could be longer than that in some cases. If you could go back to the prior slide there, please. Okay. What does this preparing do for us? Well, number one, we can take protective actions to keep ourselves safe, to keep our world safe, okay, the best we can. Remember, we're not first responders. None of us in this room, except for you perhaps, are a first responder, okay? Our jobs are to take care of ourselves. You know, we heard about evacuations and things like that. We heard about shelters. By the way, we have 2 Red Cross shelters here in Rio Vista, the high school and Riverview Middle School. So in fact, we are reevaluating those right now. We do a periodic survey of those facilities. So it's our job to take care of ourselves, to take the actions to be safe, to react in the right ways. And by the way, the reacting in the right ways is to follow what the first responders tell us to do. The American Red Cross is not a first response agency. We are asked to come in at the behest of first responders, the state, the county, the fire departments, the whatnot. We don't go in until we are asked to go in. We don't do evacuations. We don't do evacuation routes. Again, we follow what the first responders want us to do. And this also allows us to recover more quickly from tough situations. Next slide. What does it take to be prepared? Again, let's go through it again. Get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. Your kit needs to contain the supplies that you need at home, okay? Or that you can carry handily if, in fact, you are asked to evacuate, okay? Making a plan. You need to identify the steps that you're going to take to react to a power outage or to other disasters. Who's going to do what to whom in your household? Well, I can tell you who's going to do what in my household. I'll do whatever she tells me to do, you know. And where will we go? Wherever she wants to go, okay? And how we will communicate with each other. And lastly, the third part of this is you need to be informed any way you can. You need to find out about how news will be disseminated in the community, how you'll find out about what's going on, what you should do, what the next steps are, when you can expect to be assisted. All of these things form the basis of Be Red Cross Ready. Again, the kit, the plan, and be informed. Let's just take a look at them individually. Preparing a disaster kit for your household is an important step, okay? It is a big one. How many people have a disaster kit right now? I will tell you that that is very impressive. Very, very impressive. If you were with me up at the fires, the wildfires 2 years ago at a shelter in Napa, and I asked the same number of 300 or 400 people who had a kit with them, I will tell you that if I had 5 or 10, it would have been a lot. Okay, so that's good for you guys, or as the Australians say, good on you. Okay, these kits should be available, should be usable for at least 3 days. Don't let that overwhelm you. You can put together, those of you that don't have them, you can put them together slowly. Those for kits at home. Another one to have is what we call a go bag. It could be any color. Red Cross, we use red. We like red. It seems to motivate people. This is a bag that you grab. It's there all the time in a space where everybody knows where it is. If you're told to go, you go and you grab that kit, okay? So it's got what you need to last that 3-day period off campus, if you will, okay? That should address the needs of every member of your household. And these kits need to be customized again for whatever your needs may be, okay? Not only for you as an individual, but for the other members of the household. And don't forget who else you have to have a go bag for? Your pet. Absolutely, absolutely. By the way, you should know that some shelters accept pets, other shelters do not accept pets. So keep that in mind if you ever need that facility. So we'll start with the basics. Food, water, clean air, and life-sustaining items. I'll let Barry take it over. I'm getting tired.
All right, I'll take a break, Mike. I'll be back. Hi, I'm Barry Frazier. I'm Vice Chair of the Emergency Action Committee. Many of you have heard me talk about what to put in a kit before, and so I'm just going to go through that again. Let me just say off the top, everybody here has talked about 72 hours, being prepared for 72 hours. And that's kind of the key. That's what FEMA has set up. That's what the county, the state, everybody says. You got to be able to be self-sufficient for up to 3 days. Now, Mike talked a little bit about a go bag versus having your kit prepared. I have myself a kit that I can use either way. I keep this stocked. I keep it updated every 6 months. I make sure everything's still in useful life, and I keep it near the car. And so I can use this if the power goes out. I can use it for 3 days, or if we're told to evacuate, I grab it, throw it in the car, and I'm gone. So this is, in my opinion, the best way to do this. And you have a kit that's mobile or that you can use at home. The other thing is that we're told to shelter in place for 3 days. I like to think of it more as a 3-day adventure. Sheltering in place doesn't sound very positive, but you can make this an adventure, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in just a second. But let me just you know what? I'm going to have to take this and walk right over here so I can show everything. So Mike said the first thing, the most important things are food and water. 3-day supply. Water, at least 1 gallon per person per day. These little water bottles, how much water is in a bottle? It's a pint. So 8 of these per person per day. That's really what you need to have. And that's not only for drinking, that could be for sanitation, that could be for any purposes you need water for.
And that may change when the weather is hot.
Right.
And don't forget your pets.
And plus water for your pets, absolutely. Second thing, food. So power's out for 2 to 3 days. You don't have any way of heating food. You don't have any way of refrigerating food. So you need to have a 3-day supply of non-perishable food that you could eat without having to fix it. Now, I have a couple of examples here. I have these emergency food rations that you can buy online. This is actually a 3-day supply of food for one person. And it tastes worse than it looks. But if this is, if you want to be really safe and secure, you could have a couple of these. They last 5 years, and it's there. I actually prefer.
years old. I don't know about you.
I actually prefer things like canned soup, which can be eaten without heating, and it has a pop top can, so you don't necessarily have to have a can opener. You should have a can opener in your kit if you don't use this kind of food.
It's the most important kitchen utensil you should have in a kit.
Yep.
Is a can
Yep.
opener. The second most important after that? Corkscrew.
Of course. So have some soup. Other things that work well, granola bars, you know, those types of bars, they last a very long time. You don't have to refrigerate them. You can also kind of count on having food in your refrigerator to eat the first day before it goes bad. So there's, eat what's in the refrigerator first. If you know you're going to have a long outage, use that first, and then use your non-perishable food. You can also buy camping food, trail food at Walmart or online that it doesn't necessarily need to be heated to be prepared. So food, water, you need a battery-powered flashlight. We have a couple of different examples of those here. We found these at Costco. You can get 3 of them for about under $25. They plug in, so they stay charged. When the power goes out, they light up, so you can find them easily. And then you can use them. They're very handy. They work really well. You can use either a traditional flashlight, or you can use them to kind of light up an area for whatever you want to be doing. So that's one option. Someone who's interested in this also showed me this interesting little thing, $20. It operates on AA batteries, so you do need to make sure you have batteries for backup, but it will last 12 hours on 2 batteries, and it's adjustable, and it also will flash red if you need to warn someone. Oh, say, yes. This was on Amazon.com, and it was about $20. Okay.
This one, I like to think of the Rio Vista. This is what I'll call the old crank light. All right. This one you can use a dynamo and charge it up anytime you want. So you don't need a battery for this. This will last as long as you can crank. It also has a USB port on it, so you can also charge your phone with this. So it's a nice thing to have. It really has a number of services.
Yep. And if you really want to get fancy, you also need a radio. It's always a great idea to have a battery-powered or solar-powered radio. We found these at Amazon for about $25. It's a combination flashlight, radio, also has the NOAA weather radio on it. It will charge a cell phone for a short period of time. Has a solar panel on top. You can charge it in sunlight, and it also has a hand crank to charge it up. So if you want kind of an all-in-one little device, this is kind of nice, and you can find these on Amazon or a variety of different places. So that's something that you can just stick in your kit. It's very handy.
Red Cross plug here. Shameless Red Cross plug. Same thing, basic radio with a crank on it. Also solar. So again, you're pretty much off the grid with these kinds of things. You don't have to rely on batteries and things like that. Where do you get them? You can get these online. Actually, you can get them on Amazon. Just American Red Cross, and it'll come up with a bunch of stuff like this. These I think are about $25.
Yep, you can find. You don't have to spend a lot of money for this kit, and you can buy things and as you over time and build it up. A few more things you want to have: a first aid kit. You can find those many places. You can build one yourself. I have a dust mask in mine just in case there's bad air. You need to check with your doctor to make sure you can use one of these before you actually try to use it. If you get one, it needs to be N95. November 95 compliant. Some moist towelettes for just for sanitation. You can get these a lot of different places. I would suggest just tossing a couple of garbage bags in there. You might need them if you're asked to evacuate. whistle. A whistle can be your best friend in a disaster. And there is if you need to attract attention or you need to alert someone that you're somewhere, it's always great to have a whistle handy. You talked about the can opener. I have a rain poncho. I have a pair of gloves. Just handy type things that you want to have that can come in handy. A car charger for your cell phone. It's in here. Always have one of those, a spare handy.
Or solar charger for your cell phone or other devices.
Yep.
Either standalone or even in a backpack.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool solar panel right there, built into the backpack. Very nice. A couple other things you might not think about: a pen and paper. You might need to write something down. Your meds, because if the power's out, you could could be very difficult to get prescriptions filled and those types of things. So you want to try to keep an advanced supply of your medications handy and close to your bag so you can grab them and go if you need to. Mike talked about cash. Have some cash because the ATMs may not work. Always keep your car half filled, at least half filled with fuel, because especially during high-risk times, in the winter for flooding, in the summer when there's maybe a fire danger, because the gas pumps may not work if the power is out. So keep some gas in your car. Finally, I recommend that you keep, this is a handy little thing for keeping important documents. You want to keep things like a contact sheet with your phone number and account numbers for insurance policies, your medical providers, credit card companies, banks, those types of things. I do not recommend putting your list of passwords in this, but if you have the account number and a phone number, you can usually get the information you need. You can also put copies of a will or deeds or important papers in here, but don't put the originals. Do not put the originals. So I think that's gone through everything. I'll leave all this up after we're done, and you can come up and take a look, or I'll answer questions. And I think I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Barry. Barry is my better half here today.
There you go.
Okay, we'll get right through this now because I know you may have some questions. Next slide, please. We've talked about customizing your commit. Don't forget your pets, things that will bring you comfort while you're stressed, whatever that may be. I will tell you, in New York City, in the blackout of 1965, that the comfort was apparently given because the delivery rate 9 months later went sky high. So whatever floats your boat. Next slide, please. A kit for everywhere. If you work, you may want to have one there, certainly one for your car. Next, please. Make a plan. Figure out what's going to happen and then incorporate some things. Figure out who's going to be out of town, who may be out of town, people who may have access to functional needs. Talk about your pets and service animals. Make sure that they're in your plan. Next, please. Include the right details. This is an important one. How to evacuate. Where are you going to meet if you have to leave your house? Okay? Again, I will meet wherever my wife tells me to meet her at, but that may not happen all the time. One should be certainly outside your home, and another one should be outside the neighborhood, somewhere a little bit distant, not too far, but away from the neighborhood which may be impacted. Don't forget any transportation challenges by those who may have mobility issues. How are you going to communicate to each other, okay? How are you going to contact each other in terms of your household members? We have a couple of things at the Red Cross that I'll pass out to you. I'll leave these on the back. One is called Safe and Well, okay? It's basically a website where you, as somebody involved in a evacuation or in an incident, can go online and leave information for your relatives saying that you're okay, and vice versa. They can go online and ask you if you're okay. Another way to find out, I found this is a great thing. It's alertsolano.com. This will text right to your cell phone anything that's going on in Solano County that's of an emergency nature. It's an alert. I get them all the time. They talk about road closures, fires, things like that. It's something very easy and I think a terrific thing to have, okay? Also plan on finding a place where you can stay if you're not able to shelter in place. And more importantly, practice your plan. Just talking it is just talk, as we've talked about here with the roads and whatnot, but actually practicing it is another thing. Next slide, please. Communication after a disaster. There's booklets back there that you all have. In the back of that booklet, by the way, it summarizes what we're talking about here today, plus specifics on other disasters as well. In the back of that book is what you'll see right up here, okay? This is our communication card, okay? And basically, it's a card that you can carry all the time that tells you who you want to communicate with. One of the things you want to have on the card are numbers of people that are important to you, because if your cell phone is dead, you can't get the phone numbers. You can't dial it immediately. So you want to have those on hand. These are available in the back of the brochure that we provided in the back of the room there. And again, we talked about Safe and Well, safeandwell.communityos.org. Next slide. Be informed. Barry talked about this. Know how you're going to get information, like Alert Solano. Know about the weather. Get a National Weather Service type radio that Barry's talked about. Follow the instructions from the authorities. We are not the first responders, okay? Therefore, we should follow what they tell us to do. If we get involved too early, we tend to screw things up. There may be other priorities that may be important. So we try to follow the lead in terms of what the responders are. We talked about this before. Get to know your neighbors. They're going to be the primary source of support for everybody, and know what to do when you're traveling. Next slide. We talked about PG&E already, so we don't really need to deal with that a lot. The tools, we talked about the emergency contact card, which you all have a copy of. Safe and Well website is in the presentation and in the books as well. And a neat thing is our Red Cross apps. We have apps that you can get on the App Store and Google Play that have apps for like every single type of disaster you could think of. They also have notification apps that will let you know if shelters have been opened in your area or not and where they are. They're free, they're easy to use. There's even an app with a game that kids can play to teach them about safety. So take advantage of those if you will. And next slide. Know your checklist. Again, the checklist is in the brochure. Know what's most likely to happen here. Have a disaster plan and practice it. Do you have your kits ready? And then we would invite you, obviously, to go out and take any education or training that you'd like to get in terms of CPR and/or first aid. Always a good thing to do. So if you would, I'd like to thank you on behalf of everybody in the Red Cross. Barry?
Yeah, let me just say, Trilogy does have an emergency action committee. We do have a checklist of all of our items. It's back on the back. There's also a disaster preparedness handbook that we've put together. You can grab one of those if you didn't already on your way out. We have meetings once a month on the fourth Tuesday of the month, 5 p.m. That's tonight, in the Delta Club. So if you're interested in learning more about this or helping spread the word about being prepared, come by and join us at one of our meetings. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Questions? Oh, Barry.
We have one last we have a kicker here.
Uh-oh. Oh, yeah.
Many times I get asked the question of, if the power's out, how do I open my garage door to get out? And I have a 1-minute video here to watch to show how you can actually open your garage door manually. So if you go right ahead and play it.
We've been hearing about the news to fire. We've been hearing about some people who have not been able to get out of their garage just because they weren't familiar with how the garage door operator releases. And just wanted to make a quick video and post it and kind of show how it works. There should be a red cord hanging down. You should be able to simply pull down on that and have someone or yourself lift up on the door at the same time. Raise it all the way up. It should stay up. If it doesn't stay up, have a neighbor or a friend hold it up for you and pull the car out. For some reason that doesn't work. If you don't have a cord, you may need to get up top and work the mechanism so that it releases from the traveler. But you should be able to lift your door manually and get out of the garage. And hope that this video helps.
Two quick points about that. One, those doors are kind of heavy, If you're not really strong, you want to get a neighbor to help you lift the door up because you can hurt yourself. And second, once the door is up, it could come back down really hard and fast, and again, it could cause some damage, so be very careful when you're lowering it back down. Get someone to help you if you're not able to handle it on your own. But that's how you can get out of your garage when the power's out. Yep.
I'm going to jump back up here. One quick thing. I can't stress Alert Solano enough. I get asked all the time, how are we going to know? How are we going to know if it's a shelter in place? How are we going to know if we need to leave? I get questions last year when the Atlas fire was burning into Solano County. People were calling in the fire station and asking, is Rio Vista threatened? Alert Solano is huge. I can pick up the phone, and in less than 5 minutes, I can have information pushed through that. I know the people in Solano County to get a hold of. I give them the message. I tell them what the narrative is that we want pushed, and they will push it out. And they will push it out specifically just for Rio Vista, or they will push it out for the entire county. Last but not least, if you're on social media, the fire department is on all platforms. I know the police department is on a few of them as well. Fire department is on all social media platforms. And also Solano County OES is on Facebook.
Do we have any questions? We have a question right over here. Barry, get up here. Hopefully it's for you.
I just wanted to let people know that a couple of days ago there was a really wonderful article. It was put out by wirecutter.com, reviews / emergency preparedness. And they had some wonderful things that you guys just talked about, but they also gave reviews on the, especially the water storage for staying at home and that sort of thing. It was an excellent article.
I'll get with you after and get that, and I'll distribute it to our committee.
Hi. You told us how to get out of our garage if there is a power outage. But if there is a power outage, will the gates open so we can get out of Trilogy?
Yes, the gates will open.
Right. When we've had power outages in the past, you will see the gates open and they stay open until there's a small backup generator that allows the gates to open, and they will stay that way until the power's back on. Maybe one more. We're kind of over time.
I just wanted to add something to the wonderful demonstration of lifting your garage door.
Yes.
The time to know if your neighbors need help with something like that is before we have an emergency. We need to get to know the neighbors around us, the 5 or 8 homes around us, and that way know who maybe is older or alone or weaker and will really need help, and who's stronger and will help us.
Yeah, I think we're out of time. Great advice. I think we're out of time, but Mike and I will be up here for a while. If you have questions, please come up and ask us. Thank you.
Thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for showing up. I just want to acknowledge kindness is contagious. The due diligence of all of the members and their concerns for you have made this possible today. So I just want to give them all a round of thank you. And one other note, this has been a very, very successful outing. So successful that all of our materials in the back are gone. So what we want to do is to let you know that they will all be available on my trilogy, mytrv.org. So just go online and get them and everything will be fine. Okay? Again, thank you for showing up, and thank you to our panel. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.